Hey everybody, Chris from Chromatic Music. Just wanted to show you guys the final easy tip on how to actually make a floating tremolo, okay, into a stop tail piece or just a lock tremolo for basically the cost of a piece of gaff tape, or you could use duct tape. Okay, I like this because it's kind of like cloth and it's very easy to rip, and a business card. This happens to be my business card. That's right. So it's a very, very simple thing. I'll show you on a guitar that I've already done. Actually, several of them. I've been doing this for years and years and years. Doesn't really move, and the benefits of it, and you can see right here in the cavity, can't really see it. There is nothing in here that looks like this tremolo is locked, yet it does not move. Okay, I can do a drop D tuning. Does not affect any of the other strings. Plus, when I do a bend like this, does not affect the tuning of any of the strings. So, the whole point I do this for is I do, just like the drop D tuning, is I do a ton of alternate tunings. I do a massive amount of recording, and I never really gig out, so I don't really have to have the instrument in one particular thing, but I do need sometimes the instruments to be very, very flexible. For example, this particular guitar, and this one is locked as well, doesn't look like you can see anything as well. Completely open tuning. So, let me go ahead and cut to the chase, show you what you need to do. This is the guitar in question that we are going to lock. It's a Yamaha. I think this is an RG, well, whatever, it's an RGZ or an RGX, whatever, but it's an 821 DMR from the early 90s. And it's got a Yamaha TRS Pro on it, which is basically kind of like a low pro Ibanez type tremolo. It's got all the same type of parts that we need to do, but we don't have to take the neck off. We don't even have to take the strings off. This is actually a pretty cool thing. To show you how to do this. So the main things that you're going to need are going to be a little miniature screwdriver just for taking off the back plate if it's not already taken off. A full-on size larger screwdriver to drive these screws, because these screws are pretty heavy duty, and you're going to need to torque them quite a bit. So I'll show you how to get to that. And you may need it or may not need it, just depending on what your tremolo is set at. But just like a multi-tool or just basically a set of Allen wrenches that actually fit really well, and, you know, to adjust the height. And then I use a string winder, of course, just to loosen the strings. So this is what's going to happen. I'm going to do two things first. I'm just going to take the locking nuts, release those. I bought this guitar without having to do anything to it. It's still very dirty. It still has the original strings. So I'm just going to loosen the nut locks. And so I can go ahead and detune the guitar as much as possible. So I just take my string winder, loosen really nice and slack. So let's just take a second. Now it's not going to matter with the position of where the tremolo is set right now. So a lot of people think you have to get the height and the position correct. You don't have to worry about that right now. So now that you can see that it's completely loose, it's way down there. So what we're going to do is we're going to counteract that by loosening these screws. So we're just going to take a big screwdriver. Be careful to use the right type of bit. Try a bunch of different types of bits that fit the best in these screws. They are easy to strip. When they start getting torqued a lot, sometimes it's better to actually just, because we're going to have to drill the screw farther into where the post actually is, because we're going to be torquing these things down real far. So now that we have no tension, and if you do have 3 springs, this probably will work. But I've actually bought on eBay for just like $1. You can get a pack of 5. It'll take a month to get there, but if you don't really care, you can buy some of these extra ones. So what I have to do is I have to pull these out. I'm just going to pop them out. And these have not been removed probably since the factory this built this guitar. They are stuck in there. And they kind of come out at an angle, so it's a little bit difficult sometimes. Yeah, it's not so much fun. Okay. got this removed. You may not have to remove all of them. Matter of fact, it might be better just to leave one screw in there just to hold it in place. Okay, so now that I've got 2 of these out. Now, depending on how old these are, if they still have a lot of pull on them, I mean, I can separate this just by pulling on it, so that might not have enough tension. But we'll see. We'll just go from there. Now, the object is in here. What we're going to do is there's a little tiny gap right here. Okay, it's a little tiny gap. It's just in between. And it's not going to be. It's got kind of a dual layer. It's almost like a staircase. But what we're trying to do is between this piece of the bridge, okay, that the spring's attached to, and in between, not this first step that you can kind of see. It's a little hard. There's a little step right here. I can put my finger on that. But in between that little space between that where you can actually see the gold part of the tremolo through there, that's what we're going to wedge. Yes, a business card. You've got thousands of them, I'm sure, in your chest drawer, junk drawer, whatever. We're going to fold this thing, and you don't have to get it perfect. We're just going to fold it probably 3/4 of an inch. Or, I'm sorry, about 5/8, something like that. And it's not that big. I mean, it's about the size of the thickness of your pinky, as long as you've got pretty average hands, so that's probably a bad example. All we're going to do is just keep folding this thing like this. Very, very simple. And all this is doing is just giving us kind of a thick cart, just a place to start with. So if you've got a little bit of a wrap over where it's not perfect, you don't have to cut it off. It doesn't make any difference. Now this is where the gaff tape comes in. The reason I like gaff tape is because even a very small amount comes off very, very clean, as you can see this. Okay, so it's very, very easy to rip. You don't have to cut it with scissors, and duct tape has to, tends to be a little bit gooey and nasty and stuff like that. So you could use it. I've done it plenty of times. It's just that if you have to remove just a little bit of it just to get it perfect, you probably, even though I've done this several times, I don't know, that's probably about 7, 8, about 6.5, 7 inches of tape. But it's not going to matter. I'll watch this. So I'm just going to put the tape just to start it here, and just wrap it down, and try to compress it as much as possible so that way I can keep it tight. That's all we're doing. And I know you think that this is ridiculous, this is never going to work, and you got to go get something expensive. But I've been doing this for years, and it's worked on every single one of my guitars. I've never had one guitar it not work on. And so, as we start like this, and we may have to add a little bit to this, but that's all we're trying to create. That's it. And when it's compressed on, remember, it doesn't need to be very tall, okay, because it's only got to fit in between that tremolo. So we're going to start with this, and I'm going to pop it. Let's put this thing down here so you can see. And I'm just literally just going to take it, I'm going to wedge it in between here and here. And the width of the business card actually helps. So we don't want to push too hard because we don't want the tremolo to pop out of its cavity, okay? And this was sitting pretty flush, so the strings are pretty good. But what we want the end result to be is we don't want this tremolo to be, we want it to see how it's sitting perfectly flush with the body. We don't want it up, we don't want it down, we don't want it in a whole bunch of different directions. So we want it to basically, when we push down on it, for it not to be able to compress. And that's what we're testing right now. And that's where you have to make an adjustment here, an adjustment there. But sometimes it'll fool you. It's actually best to put as much tension as you can and add to it or take it away. So what we're going to do, and this is kind of a easy way to fix this, you'll get more tension if you put from like in a diagonal from these guys, just because it pulls a longer distance. So I'm just going to put this guy here, put that in the middle. I may have to add a spring, but we shall see. And hopefully, I just got to put it in first. Yeah. All right. And then just flip it over just to make sure that these things are on the pegs. And then I just start torquing it down. And just make sure that your springs are well seated so they don't go flying on you or pop off. Just make sure you don't get hurt. If you feel like you need to wear safety goggles, go ahead and do that. I'm kind of keeping my hand over the top of these springs just in case they do pop. It'll hurt like hell, but in the end of the day, it won't fly off and hit my eyes. Alright, so now it's getting really tough to torque down. Ow. Let's cut my fingernail. All right, so now, okay, so this is what's happened. It's pulled so much against it. Let's see if I can show it from here. You see how it's kind of like now it's not sitting down on this post. And that's pretty normal. It's gonna do that because we've got that piece that's kind of just falling against it. So there's a lot of pull coming up against us. So what we're gonna do, just tighten the strings. And just kind of wrap them back up. I'm not trying to get 100% of the tension just yet. So that's pretty close. Okay, so now that we've got that, we can see that the tremolo is sitting a little bit high, and it's okay because we just have to kind of adjust it here and there. But we got to see if these springs are pulling enough. And it looks like there is just a little bit too much. Like I'm pushing down really hard on the back of this tremolo, and it wants to compress it, but it's actually, that just means if it's not perfectly flush like it was before, that means there's too much gaff tape around there. Now, this might be fine for some of you guys. You might be just like, okay, that's great, because check this out. And it's already working like a stop tail piece. I mean, you try to tune a friggin' Floyd Rose that fast. Let's see if it's up to pitch, which it's not. Okay, so let's see now. I'm pushing on it a little bit, and you can hear it kind of oscillating. So there's a little bit of two things that we've got to adjust when this happens, okay? We probably have to put another spring on here because I'm torquing these springs down just as much as I can. I could probably put a little bit more on them just to see if I can keep it from moving, but it's really fighting me, and I'm in risk of just, you know, either stripping the screw, and I just don't want to do that, so I'll probably just add a spring. They're cheap. But, I mean, that's pretty well solid. Okay. Up to pitch, do a drop D. Check the tuning. So there you go. I just locked a tremolo for gaff tape and a business card. That's it. That's all you have to do. You don't have to drill anything. You don't have to add any special things. If you ever want to get rid of it, loosen these springs, pop the thing out, you got a floating tremolo again. That simple. Doesn't cost you anything. It's a very, very easy mod. Now, if you want to continue watching this video, I'm going to show you how to do those micro adjustments just by taking a little bit of gaff tape off, okay, so I can get this dead flat, because that's going to adjust my my action. So let me just do this. Take this down again. We need to take probably most of the tension off of here. And this is actually really important that you take your time and just get it right, because you'll be fine. I mean, all of my tremolos are perfect. All right, there's going to be a lot of tension on these strings. These springs here, so let's get rid of that. Again, I'm going to add a spring to this just to make sure I have adequate tension. If you're using 9s, you won't have to add a spring, but if you're using 10s or 11s or something like that, you're definitely going to have to. So what I'll do is I'm going to pop this center one off first, and then I'm going to move this guy to the right, and then I'm just going to add one straight across like that, but I'm going to get this piece out of here first. Just grab a screwdriver or something like that and just pop it out. It's a little pain in the ass to get this with the spring there. So it is easier to get out with the spring out of the place. Sorry, I'm kind of screwing with this thing. It's a little harder to get out than normal. Okay. So, this is all you need to do to fix this issue. You'd think you'd have to take a lot off. Trust me, you don't. This thing is already pretty well compressed, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off that much. That's it. That's all I'm taking off. Don't take any more than that. I'm telling you, don't do a full turn, do a half a turn. So just one simple layer. So let me just pop that back in there. Alright. Grab me another spring. So you can see color difference in this one and this one. You see the age. This is the new one, it's like brand new, and this one's pretty corroded, and this one's very hard to turn. This one's still got some good tension on it, but 4 springs will do the trick. I know that for a fact, and I won't have to torque those screws down so much. So now that that's in place, I'm going to put this guy in the hole first. It does not want to go in there easy, so let's try another hole. This might be a genuine pain in the ass because it doesn't want to go into that, and that is going to be a nightmare to ever try to get out. Grief. Okay, so whatever. These springs are not necessarily made for this guitar, and I'm probably never going to get that one out again. So beware of other springs that were not manufactured with this particular instrument. They may be harder to get in and out. Just be forewarned. This one's not that bad. It's not that easy either. Okay, so now I've got 4 springs. I'm going to torque these things down again. And just tap this in there. So it doesn't hit the cover plate. It fits. It's just going to be a tight fit, so it's not going to be fun to remove. Okay. It's definitely got some good tension on it now. I can definitely tell the difference between that spring being added. Alright. Make sure that these are sitting on their posts correctly. Okay, so that thing is just dive down. Okay. So let's put the full tension back on the strings. That instantly pulls on it now. First part of it's just going to be raising the tremolo back up on its pegs. You need to make sure that you kind of do this evenly. Don't just tighten up the strings all the way to pitch on one side, because you need to have equal pressure on both sides. Okay, it's starting to come up a little bit. And it's actually, now this is what I was telling you. I might have to bring these things up again, but if you look, just that little bit of gaff tape made this thing recess a little bit too far. It's a little bit too much. Now, actually I got to pull this. This is actually not on the peg correctly, so that's got to be adjusted. You just got to make sure that this part, there we go, just push it from there. Now it's sitting there. And now, check it out. Dead flat. Both sides. Now, it'll make good connection. Turn it up. relative I am. Not bad. A little flat, but not bad. All right, so tremolo, I got just with that little bit of tiny bit. I mean, this is the real length right here. That's how much I took off. That's it. So that little bit off of that got me to get my tremolo to be exactly how it was when it was set up beforehand. Action is perfect. You don't even notice it's there. You know it's not a permanent fix, but everything works. But I don't have to worry about this being a problem. It's pretty much locked on there. Want to do an alternate tuning? Done. That's it. Anyways, thanks for watching. It was a very simple mod I've come up with, I don't know, 20 years ago when I was teaching everything like that, and I did not know that they even made those replacement parts for guitars for locking tremolos. It was just one of those real complicated things. And I definitely do not want to put extra screws in a guitar that doesn't require them. So if you have any questions or comments or what you need, I use pretty much an average thickness business card. I would suppose if you got like a really awesome freaking insane thickness, you know, like a business card that just doesn't even want to bend or something like that, that's probably going to cause a little bit more of an issue. Obviously, the thickness of the business card is going to make a difference, but I would say it's an average business card. I got them from Vistaprint, you know what I mean? So they're like $500 for $8, or 500 cards for like $8. It's one of those kind of cards. So not a super heavy duty experiment. I just showed you really the easiest way to adjust it is the gaff tape. You don't have to use this. I just recommend it, but I don't say you need to spend $35 on a roll of gaff tape because this stuff is kind of expensive. But it does give you the freedom to, even if you did start off with a really thick business card or even a thinner business card that was kind of cheap, you could just, use this. Truthfully, you could use some construction paper if you really wanted to. The reason I suggest the business card in the first place is because of the width of the business card. When you actually fold it, it's perfect to go into the cavity of that. I've made longer ones before where I just kind of experimented and they were just too long. They got the tremolo jacked up and it was just messed up. So that's the way I do it, and it's always worked for me. And you can see it took about 20 minutes to do this, and I did not have to leave the house. I pretty much had everything. I'm sure you have all of these tools sitting around. And again, subscribe if you like the video, and there's going to be more helpful things in the future. Peace.